The Zoological Society of Cincinnati opened its gates in 1875, making the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden the second oldest zoo in the United States. Our zoo is famous for its efforts to save endangered species and, of course, for Fiona. But here are some curious facts you might not know. Cincinnati started its zoo because of a caterpillar infestation. In 1872, caterpillars infested Cincinnati trees to such an extent that Andrew Erkenbrecher, a wealthy local miller, formed the Society for the Acclimatization of Birds to import caterpillar feasting species. Erkenbrecher is largely responsible for Cincinnati's starlings and English sparrows. Flushed with success after acquiring more than 1,000 birds, the Society developed plans for Cincinnati zoological gardens to house the imported birds that could not survive in the wild here. In the early days, getting a job at the zoo was far less formal than it is today. Saul Steffen arrived at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1875 to deliver a bull African elephant named Conqueror. Although opening day was rapidly approaching, the zoo was still under construction and no one knew how to take care of an elephant. Steffen was asked to stick around for a couple of days. He actually stayed for 62 years, rising to become the legendary superintendent and general manager. In addition to rare animals, the zoo once displayed a variety of dogs. On opening day, visitors saw a Newfoundland, 2 Mastiffs, Poodles, Danish Hounds, and Greyhounds. Some were trained performers, but others were displayed simply to illustrate the various breeds. Interested observers could purchase dogs from the zoo. St. Bernard dogs were advertised as docile, but a terror to tramps and evildoers. For half a century, the zoo was home to Cincinnati's summer opera. At times, the onstage artists had to harmonize with screeching peacocks and trumpeting elephants. The accommodations were far from regal. Performers had to dress and make up in a small village of tents near the stage, except for the star soprano. She was assigned the only dressing room. Well, thank goodness for caller ID. For years, the telephone at the Cincinnati Zoo rang off the hook on the first day of April. A standard April Fool's prank involved leaving a phone message asking the victim to return a call to Mr. Bear, Mr. Lion, Mr. Wolf, or Mr. Fox. While the perpetrator enjoyed boffo yucks, the zoo's receptionist dreaded the annual ordeal. With almost universal caller identification, that gag lost its luster. And right now, I want to welcome the king of curiosities, the one and only Greg Hand. Greg, thanks for joining us. Get right to it now. Just how many birds did Mr. Erkenbrecher import to Cincinnati?
You know, the important thing is not the actual number of birds he brought in, but what those little birdies did. The numbers of birds imported might have been in the hundreds or something like that, but within a few years, what you discovered is you could not walk in Cincinnati because of the number of sparrows up in the wires, the telegraph wires that ran through the city, because not only did the sparrows like the caterpillars that they were invited to this country to eat up, but they really liked horse poop. And there was lots of horse poop in Cincinnati because that was the mode of transportation at the time. And so the sparrows multiplied exponentially, and it got to the point where they started burying utility lines just to find a way to send the sparrows away from the sidewalks.
So, were Cincinnatians truly interested in looking at dogs?
You know, it's important to remember that back then they didn't have, like Facebook or Instagram, where you could post pictures of your pets. And so the ability of Cincinnatians to actually see different breeds of dogs that were raised locally very far away, like St. Bernards in Switzerland and Great Danes in Denmark and that sort of thing, was very, very difficult. And so bringing a Great Dane to Cincinnati would have been in the same realm as bringing a zebra or something. On the other hand, you've got to remember that the same thing applied to people. At one time, the Cincinnati Zoo had people on exhibit. There was one year when the zoo made a contract with one of the Native American tribes and sent a bunch of Native Americans to Cincinnati, where they spent the summer in their teepees as an exhibit at the zoo.
So did Saul Steffen really deserve his legendary reputation?
Now, to answer this question, we need to bring up a strange person from Cincinnati history, a jazz musician by the name of Harry Spindler. Harry was one of the pioneering jazz musicians in Cincinnati and got out of music to work as a naturalist. He created a career as a naturalist, and his business was importing exotic animals. He would travel by boat to India, to Africa, to Malaysia, to Australia, and just fill up a large cargo ship with animals that he would bring back to the United States and sell. And he used to say that the way he got entree into these exotic animal markets all over the world, where he knew nobody personally, was just to say, I'm shopping for Saul Steffen. And everybody around the world, Malaysia, India, Africa, deep in the jungles, they knew Saul Steffen. So yes, his legend really spread around the world.
Greg, always good to have you with us for the show. Until next time, take care, my friend.
Looking forward to it.